Hi everyone, how are you? Hope you're doing well today. Let me know if you have any questions or if you have anything you'd like to discuss. Hi, how are you guys? Hope you're doing well today. Let me know if you have any questions or if you have anything you'd like to discuss. Hi, how is everyone? I hope you guys are doing well this evening. If there's any other childhood trauma survivors in here, I hope you guys are doing well today. Hi guys, I hope you're doing well this evening. This is a childhood trauma and CPTSD related chat, but I'm open to discussing relatively anything. I hope you guys are doing well this evening. If anyone has questions, let me know. If anyone in here doesn't know what CPTSD is, it stands for Complex Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. I do have some pinned videos on my page, or I think right now only one pinned video, but it should take you to the other ones, explaining some examples and causes of CPTSD. The main notable difference between PTSD, which most people know about. Oh, wow. I'm so sorry for your loss, but I'm happy that maybe me looking like her gives you some comfort. I'm doing good today. How are you? Yeah, so the main difference between PTSD and CPTSD is typically kind of like the duration of the traumatic events that occurs. CPTSD comes from chronic traumatic events. So my example of it is my childhood trauma, but for a lot of people it can come from prolonged experience to domestic violence, war, if it's like a long instance of being active in war. I'm from the East Coast. What about you? How is everyone this evening? Is everybody doing okay? Oh, that's so cool. I honestly don't know. I suck at world maps and like knowing where they are in relation to me. Is everybody doing okay this evening? Does anyone have I'm doing good. Don't know if that was to me, but does anyone have any trauma related tattoos? Most of mine are kind of trauma themed at this point. Does anyone have any questions that I could answer, either in relation to any of my like the stories that I've posted, or in relation to trauma, or if there's maybe like any experiences that you'd like to discuss? I also am curious if anyone I do have CPTSD from complex childhood trauma. Mine mainly comes from trauma surrounding childhood neglect and hoarding. And then I don't personally like have degrees or study on it, but I did go to university and study psychology, so I do have a bachelor's in psychology and just a big interest in psychology, even kind of before I realized how many issues of my own I had, I guess. So I was knowledgeable on it before I kind of realized I had it, but not really more than what you get from school. Not like any specialty or anything. But yeah, CPTSD is starting to kind of get more popularity and get more understood, which is good. But what's the difference? So the main difference, so a lot of people know what PTSD is. We see it a lot in the media, and just like anything in the media, it can be like too stigmatized or things like that. But I do think in general, media does a good representation of kind of showing what PTSD can be, which is like flashbacks, triggers, intrusive thoughts, intrusive memories from events. So PTSD, along with CPTSD, there can be so many different causes. All of them are valid. It can be from like sexual assault, abuse, unfortunately rape, like things along those nature. It can be a single instance of domestic violence or domestic abuse, car accidents, a workplace incident where you get injured. PTSD and CPTSD, they can come from so many different things. CPTSD, the main notable difference between that and PTSD is, oh, thank you so much for the roses. That means a lot to me. Any donations I get, I'm actually going to be donating towards, putting towards a bulk donation I'm doing to animal rescues in July, just so everyone knows. So then PTSD is usually comes about from a single or short time period of trauma that is caused to the individual, whereas complex trauma comes about by a prolonged period of traumatic events. So for me, it was a lot of like instances of trauma throughout my childhood. So like growing up with like hoarding, like there was a lot of animal death that I experienced that has caused me a lot of complex trauma. Growing up in a hoarder home just comes, oh, thank you so much for sharing the live. Sharing and liking the live does help me a lot, just so I can hopefully reach other viewers who are interested in the topic, who may want to discuss, but no pressure. But yeah, so CPTSD is more of like a prolonged period of trauma. So for me, growing up in a hoarder home, I unfortunately experienced a lot of sensory experiences that have caused me a lot of triggers. A notable one for me, for example, is sometimes going to work when I go through the city, and this is like unfortunate. I feel terrible feeling this way, but it's unfortunate, just like a trauma reaction that I can't control. But when I'm walking through the city, if I smell a person who is unhoused and doesn't have a home, of course, like unfortunately that typically comes with like an odor because they're not able to clean themselves. That like smell instantly like transports me back to my childhood home, because I grew up in a hoarder home that was very much like no running water at times, just not very good ways to take care of your hygiene. So when I smell that, it instantly transports me back to living in a hoarder home. So it's like it's a horrible, like guilt-ridden cycle of, ugh, like I feel so horrible that I can't like walk past a person who's experiencing homelessness without immediately being like reminded of like my own, like I like immediately like get sense memory like transported back. I feel like I'm literally little Summer in the house again, like smelling those smells, because it's like so similar to like my sense memory, I guess. So that's like honestly a lot of how I experience my CPTSD triggers. Oh yeah, smells. So actually, yeah, that's what I was about to say, is smells is actually what I've come to realize is my biggest trigger for my CPTSD. Thank you so much. Yeah, so like smells, definitely. And they're still like, that's definitely the biggest thing I'm like still slowly unpacking, because as time goes on, I feel like, oh, thank you for the follow. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for joining the live. I really appreciate everyone. I'm so grateful for you guys. But yeah, so smell definitely can be a big PTSD, CPTSD, just trauma trigger in general. For me especially, I feel like honestly a lot of people who come from hoarder homes definitely will experience that kind of sensory overload or like sensory like trigger from smells. And then yeah, like I definitely have heard of it coming from like if you have experienced abuse from a certain individual, if you smell like certain smells that remind you of them, you can be triggered. Aside from my own childhood trauma, like I have personal, like I hate the smell of, I think it's Irish Spring body soap because it reminds me of my grandpa, who I have like separate trauma with aside from the stuff I've done. Oh, thank you so much for following me, guys. It means so much. If you guys know anyone who would benefit from this material, please feel free to share the live with them, but also like no pressure. I feel like this is like a weird like topic to be like, hey guys, share this live to anyone. Like only really share it if you feel like it'll benefit somebody and make like, you know, help somebody else out. I don't want to like push this stuff onto anyone who doesn't need it. But yeah. So yeah, like smells can definitely be a big trigger. That's like the biggest one for me. I don't know if anyone else here comes from a hoarder home that's in the chat, but I struggle so much still to like, and it's like a big like shame guilt cycle of like I still struggle to clean and still like keep my space clean. Definitely not anywhere close to the condition of my parents' home, but it's kind of, I mean, you have to give yourself grace because I realize like, yes, I'm almost 30, but I did not start learning household chores, like anything like that until I was 22 or 3. I moved out for college at the age of 17 or 18. And then that's when I moved out of my parents' home. And then I lived off campus or on campus for a year or two. And then when I went from on campus to off campus, that's kind of when I had the biggest like perspective shift of my life, because I had to live with roommates and share a space and keep up with like house duties, and that was like a big wake-up call for me that the childhood and the life that I experienced was very abnormal. Because I was like, oh, my roommates hate that I do these things, or I would just hear my roommates just talk about normal things like with their parents, or I mean normal, like everyone has like their own issues, but like I would hear them talk about like their home life and I'd be like, oh wow, mine's not like that. That's so weird. And like I knew like I could never take my friends home to visit. I developed, and I didn't know it at the time, but I have OCD. And at the time I would get like hyper anxious if like anyone from my college would know anyone from my hometown, because I would be like, I would start getting worried like, oh, now that I realized my home life was so abnormal, like what if these people tell people that know me in college and it changes their perspective of me? And yeah, it was a very big thing. Does anyone have any other questions? I hope everyone's doing okay tonight. My dog is being cute. Does anyone need anything? Oh yeah, they do. Thank you for asking. I love talking about them. So they're actually a lot like of trauma related. Although I really have made my whole personality my trauma, but I'm okay with it. So this one is my main one. Sorry, I have like weird elbows. Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Feel free to like the live, comment, share, ask questions. Right now I'm just talking about my tattoos. So this here is actually my childhood home, and I had the artist kind of trace it and make it all pretty. And pretty much the theme of this was from a quote that I saw that says, if you're born into a burning house, you tend to think the whole world is on fire. And that is a quote that I very much identified with as soon as I saw it. So I was like, oh wow, like if you're born into a burning house, you tend to think the whole world is on fire. And then I just took it very literally and got it put on my arm. So yeah, this is like my childhood home burning up in flames. Metaphorically. And then growing up, my father called me his butterfly. Aside from that, a strained relationship and stuff. So like I actually put these little 3 butterflies to symbolize me and my siblings kind of like escaping the house and the childhood. So that's that one. And then this one over here is the storm in a teacup, which also kind of can have like trauma and other meanings. If you look it up, it kind of has like more of an like a deeper explanation to it, but I always say I'm like the little paper boat. And this is my trauma and my parents, and I was just trying to get through. But yeah, because like I feel like that's, a lot of people can feel like that sometimes, like you're a little boat in a teacup. And then this I got when I was in Thailand in 2019 for a trip to visit my friend, and it pretty much translates to like live your best life. Kind of. Thank you so much. If anyone lives near Philly, my tattoo artist who's done my tattoos is in Philly. Thank you so much. And honestly, that's the thing I still struggle with to this day. It's one of those things where I say, like, as cycle breakers, it's hard because you know that it's wrong. So we're bearing the weight of like knowing and realizing that these things are wrong, that our parents have either like taught us or failed to teach us to learn. But then because we know that it's wrong, and for some reason our parents or the generations before us didn't seem to like be like, this is wrong, let's stop doing this, we're kind of burdened to feel all of like the guilt and the shame when we finally realize like, oh my god, like living like this is not normal, like this is not good for me, like etc, etc. And it's like, oh my god, like I need to fix this. And like honestly, the first thing to do is like pat yourself on the back, because if you even had those thoughts, you're already steps ahead of like the parents or your guardians or whoever came before you, because they never were able to process that. I do think a big part of hoarding is delusion, and being able to, even like while I was a kid in it, like I had to kind of like succumb and like submit to my parents being like, this is normal, this is okay, this is what everybody's house looks like, because if not, you would have to kind of break the veil, face this really, really painful reality that this isn't okay, this is uncomfortable, like, and just all of the trauma that comes with that. Yeah, honestly, I posted mine and I talked about it in therapy. It's like, I feel so empowered by posting my story, but there still is those kind of like deep-seated like core feelings of like, I feel so embarrassed. Like, even though I was not the adult in this situation, I wasn't the one who chose to have my living conditions be as such, I did never choose to have as many animals that we had, etc. Like, I still feel so embarrassed by the conditions that like my parents choose to live in. And it's hard, because breaking that like shame, guilt, like embarrassment cycle is so difficult, because it's, if you come from that environment, it's such a deep like core ingrained thing. Wow, yes. See, this is like one of the many things that like I believe is so validating from like sharing about this, is like just that sentence you just said, where it's like realizing it wasn't even expensive to fix. Like, I've had that realization so much about things with my parents now, like growing into adulthood. Like, yes, things would have been difficult. Yes, at times my parents didn't have a lot of money, but now I look back and I'm like, and I grew up riding horses, which obviously costs a lot of money, and my parents poured so much money into that and like blamed it on me, like, oh, Summer wanted this, that's why we spent so much money here. But like, they did that because me looking good made them look good. Narcissist parents vibes. And like, I never cared to like compete at the level they made me to like make them spend all of that money. Like, I would have been fine with the bare minimum, as children can be. Like, if you give them safety and stability, like, I would have been fine with that. But they were like, oh, you need to, they poured all their money into that, but then we lived in like deplorable conditions at home. And also the house that I've shown is like my parents' second or third home I remember from growing up. We moved to that home when I was in, I believe, 5th or 6th grade. And then I left, moved out when I was a senior, went to college. And then it's still like the state that it's in is like still the state that it's in. So it got worse after I left, keep progressing. So like even though like it's crazy even to this day since I've spoken up, like they'll blame me, like, oh, my kids are the reason we never had money. Like, that's a main hoarder, just abusive parent tactic. Like, you're the reason I don't have all this money, you're the reason I don't have all this time, etc., to do all these things. But I've been gone from the home for 10 years now and nothing's changed, you know? So yeah, like, it definitely, like, of course it would have cost money, but it would not have cost, like, my parents, like, that's where you realize, like, they were adults and they made bad choices to put money and, like, prioritize other things over their own safety, their kids' own safety and stability, etc. And then, sorry, I'm behind, but, if you know, oh yeah, I totally don't mind. And honestly, as long as people aren't rude, I really open many questions. Even if people don't understand and they're trying to learn, I am totally open to answering so many, like, as many questions. But yes, I did cut contact around a year or so ago when I started speaking out. And time, it is about 7:30 p.m. here for me. What about you? How is everybody? Here in the UK. What does that mean? Does that mean 1 a.m.? I'm so bad at stuff. But also, I don't know if you saw, but yeah, I did cut contact about a year ago-ish. Yeah, like about a year or so ago. I started posting my stuff on Facebook, and it started with me kind of like outing my parents for their animal hoarding and went from there. Oh yeah, totally. Honestly, I love talking about it. I know some people might not. And that's why, like, I feel like I'm also in, like, this position where I've always been radically vulnerable from as young as I can remember. Like, very like, my parents would say over dramatic, but, like, I've always been overly emotional and really will, like, share as much as possible if it'll help people. So yeah, about a year or so ago in, like, March, I had gotten to this point with my own mental health. Like, I had realized I had OCD. Yeah. I realized I had OCD and it was really affecting me for about a year leading. So like last March, before that, for like a year, I was in like the worst mental state of my life. I was struggling with OCD, like the worst extent of it. I couldn't like get through a minute without like being bombarded with intrusive thoughts. And like that stuff I can talk about deeper if people want to. But then leading up to March, like I kind of realized through going to therapy and other things that a big catalyst for my OCD was obviously like the unstable childhood environment I grew up in. And my parents to this day still, like if I were to unblock my parents and reach out like nothing had happened, like I didn't, like I feel like they would be like fine with it. Like they would be like, they would just act like nothing happened. And that's like a big telltale sign of like toxic families, unfortunately. Where like, and that was like kind of, that's what had gotten to me. Like about a year or so ago in March, like when I had realized stuff, I was like, I can't keep doing this cycle of pretending like nothing happened. That's what's grinding at me. Like that, I think, was what had made my OCD so horrible leading up to that point. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep pretending like my parents didn't neglect me in a hoarder house for all of my childhood. You know, like I can't pretend that that didn't happen. Sorry to say. So I decided to approach my mom. I know my viral post is about my mom, but it's a quote. If we want to talk reality, I like 100% believe my father is way more culpable for my childhood than my mom. Like, yes, my mom is part of it. Two parents, a tango, but yeah. So like I got into like, so actually like leading up to that March, I think it was like a month before that, I had taken my mom. So mind you, my father's a horrible person. And along with that is domestically abusing my mother, allegedly. And so like my mom has never done much. Like she's been with my father all of her life. So like right before I cut contact, and something that kind of helped me realize that I needed to was I took my mom on her first trip ever, like her first flight, whatever, to Vegas because she loved Shania Twain and I wanted to go see the residency with her. And like this is like I'm being very honest because I'm like people like a year ago, I did not think this would be where I would be with my parents, you know? Like I still naively thought one day I can be honest with my parents about everything they put me through and they're going to take accountability and acknowledge it. No, like I was very delusional up until the point where I realized I couldn't be anymore. And unfortunately that seems to kind of be consistent for people. Come here, Lennon, you can come up. Sorry, my dog's whining at me if you hear that. But I took my mom on that trip and it was without my dad. So it was just me and my mom. And it was during that trip I kind of realized like how anxious I felt around my parents and family. And like I had always felt that way, like going to my childhood home, and I kind of knew why. So like I always kind of didn't visit much. But when I took my mom on that trip, I was like, I had the worst anxiety ever. I was constantly having to like call my boyfriend and friends and like have them talk me off the ledge. And then I felt so guilty because I felt so overwhelmed and anxious just being in the presence of my own mother. And like obviously like just even aside from trauma, I think like even if you didn't have trauma, someone just, if you felt that way towards your parents, like instinctually your body would be like, this is wrong, because it's against natural instinct. Like you're supposed to want and feel safe around your mother or your parents. So like I think even just aside from trauma, my brain and body was like rejecting that idea, and the fact that like my mom like just being around my parents made me so uncomfortable because of all of the trauma. So like when we talk about CPTSD triggers, unfortunately my parents in and of themselves are one. Like being around them and being around kind of like the nonchalantness of like not even like acknowledging what's going on, etc., was like way too much. And during that trip I kind of realized like how parentified I was. Like I had to do everything for my mom that trip. Like you would think like, oh, I go on vacation with my mom and she, you know, takes the lead and helps do things and stuff. No, like I was the one helping do everything. She was venting to me about stuff from home, which like obviously if you come from an unstable environment, my mom's like, we have no money, this and that and this and that, and like putting all of that onto me and stuff like while we're on trip, etc. And so by the end of that trip I got home and I was like, I like had processed a lot and was like, okay, me and my therapist had a deep discussion, and she was like, as much as I know that you think your parents know all of this stuff because it should be obvious, like how I felt about like obviously like my hoarder home wasn't okay, she was like, you need to say something and like create boundaries. Like you'll feel so validated, empowered, whatever, but like you need to be like, hello, like we can no longer have a relationship if you keep pretending like XYZ from my childhood did not happen, like did not occur. So that is kind of what I did. Last March I sent my mother, because I knew she would be more of the better of the two to kind of like approach the situation, like if someone were to respond to me approaching them about like what they did wrong kindly, it would be my mother and not my father in my situation personally. Hi Leah, how are you? Hope you're having a great night. We're talking about when I cut no contact a year ago, in case anyone has popped in. But yeah, so like I realized I could not be around my parents and pretend, or just look at my family in general and pretend like everything had not happened. So I messaged my mom because I felt like she would be the better of the two. And I pretty much was like, it ended really dramatic, but it was pretty much me very kindly, very emotionally mature, way more than they deserve, being like, I love you. Take that back now, you know? But like, I love you guys so much and I know you love me, but I've been needing to say this for a while, but the way that you treated me and the childhood that you afforded me does not provide me. Oh, thank you. Well, not I'm so sorry you can relate, but thank you so much for your vulnerability and for sharing any experiences with me. But yeah, so like I realized like I'd messaged my mom like I can't do this anymore without at least like acknowledging the trauma that you had put me through. Yes, I always say like it's a grief. Ooh, not me falling. Like it's a grief in and of itself. And it's so complex. Like grief itself is complex. Grieving someone living is already complex, but then like grieving it when it's this like complex family scenario is like just pile on another thing, why don't you, you know? Oh, thank you so much. And honestly, I always be letting people know like, ugh, it's stupid that they say that, but honestly, I'm to the point of like, I really didn't care about those comments. Like they weren't actually like hurting or offending me. Probably like they thought they were. I just wanted to make sure other people knew that that stuff was not okay to say. Yeah. So like my parents were acting like they did nothing wrong, obviously all of my life. And that I think is just the biggest trauma trigger for me. I think that's why I developed, well, not why. I think it's a big trauma trigger for my OCD, that it's like, I could not be around them anymore. Like I literally wanted to like bash their heads. Like, you know, I am not a violent person. I have never had aggression or violent tendencies, unlike my father. See, oh yeah, I was talking about that earlier. I don't know if you were here for it, but I was saying like the sensory experience of hoarding, and like that is like a big CPTSD trigger for me. And then also like with OCD is like touching certain things, feeling certain textures, eating certain textures is like overwhelming for me because of like the trauma that I went through, if that makes sense. Like it all like, and I never realized for so long that it really all related back to kind of like the sensory issues of childhood. Like whenever I see people like teaching their kids how to eat properly and like introducing foods, I'm like, yeah, that never probably ever happened near me or for me, or probably any kids who went through hoarding. So I always feel like that's probably a big contributing factor to like my sensory issues, if that makes sense. Yep. And honestly, like I've seen it both ways. People either can be overly clean because of OCD or like from hoarding, or the other way. Like sometimes my OCD is like, if I can't get things perfect, I won't even try. And that can sometimes get in the way of cleaning and cleanliness routines because like they haven't been modeled for me. So my brain's like, and that's also I think ADHD wise, but yeah, like you freeze. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I was never taught. Yeah. So like when I finally told my parents pretty much like everything, like I literally even said like I just got diagnosed with OCD and like that comes from my childhood, like that on top of like, I don't know if, I mean, I assume honestly most people from hoarding and neglect scenarios experience this, but these be my cute glasses, but I actually apparently was blind my whole life. I went to the eye doctor and the dentist for the first time in my life in like 2020 something. Like my parents maybe took me like once or twice growing up as a kid, even though they had insurance at times, which is kind of crazy. Because I know sometimes that's also just like a neglect because people don't have it in America, like access. But like my parents had access, but like also didn't take us at the times they had access. So I realized like a year or two ago that I was driving blind. Like they were like, yeah, you shouldn't have been driving. Like you can't see without glasses. And then like literally my teeth were rotting out of my face because growing up, even when you try to take care of your hygiene, my parents barely had running water. Aside from just like cleaning up routines, they never modeled personal hygiene routines. And that's like something, at least I always say, like, I don't know if anyone in here is male or is a girl who also grew up with like male siblings in a hoarding scenario, but I always feel so horrible for them because aside from my parents not modeling like personal hygiene for me, I feel like I at least kind of learned it secondhand through like being able to have like more exposure to like female friends and just like that. Like I feel like that like I feel like as a female growing up in a hoarder home, I had a better avenue to learn like hygiene stuff secondhand without being embarrassed. Like my brothers, I feel like would have had to ask someone would have had to show them, like it would have been very embarrassing for them to like learn personal hygiene outside of the home. Whereas like me, it's like I could go over to a friend's house and they would be like, let's play with makeup and let's do this and etc., if that makes sense. Yeah, I very much, so that's also then where it's like, like I had more of luck in like in my personal situation, like compared to my brothers in like personal hygiene stuff. But then when it comes to friends, I do think my brothers had an easier time making friends in the hoarder home that we grew up in, because for them, or I just like, I think with guys in general, or like just experience in my small town was like the guys didn't care, like they would come over and not care about the state of our house, like the guys that were friends with my brothers. But I had kind of always rationally knew as a girl, if I brought friends over, it would be like I would feel embarrassed. The bullying would probably start the next day at my school, etc., if that makes sense. And then my mom had 10. Oh yeah, my parents have had, and it like this thing is like I can't even tell you the amount of animals my parents have, like, or have had over my life. And that's even just like a big trauma trigger for me because it's so odd, or just like where it's like sense of identity. It's like I know that I care about animals and I'm such a caring person, but then I also grew up with like hoarders who also hoarded animals, and along with that, along with that, like came having to unfortunately like secondhand be part of animal neglect and abuse. So it's like, ugh, I'm a horrible person because I was secondhand a part of that as a child, even though like I know, like I had, this is like way too TMI, but since you're online you get to hear it. Growing up, the smells and stuff of my house were so horrible that at one point my parents didn't realize, like, because they would have so many cats and stuff at points, they didn't realize that like we had a cat missing for a while. And finally, when my parents cleaned their room, they found the deceased cat under my parents' bed with all of like the trash and hoard, and it had been there for probably 2 months since it had been missing, I think for like a few months at that point, and it was in my parents' home under their bed. Like that's how bad the hoard had been, and I mean probably still is. Thank you so much. And thank you. And like, see, like that's like a random thing where it's like it feels so normal to me, but I know that it's not, you know. But for me at the time that I experienced it, it felt so normal, but it wasn't. Like, no. And even like that's something like I have health OCD, and a lot of what gets to my health OCD is I just think about like if you've seen like the videos of the state of my house from my page. Not at the moment, I don't think. I might do it later though. Thank you so much. Yeah, like yelling at them. My dad allegedly was a big proponent for physically abusing animals, and we also had horses and he would do that as well. What else would I say? But yeah, like you think that like everything is like your fault and you're part of the cycle. And it's like weird, like your parents teach you that, like you're part of the cycle. And it's like, that's where sometimes, like, obviously I know hoarding is a mental illness, and like I have mental illnesses of my own, obviously. It's just hard for me to like rationalize like how much of it is like purposeful, like how much are my parents, like how much is it like the parents like mental illness, and then how much of it is like personal culpability of them, like because like my parents also did a lot of like sibling alienation between me and my brothers. Like they really instilled a lot of hate between me and my brothers from a young age, like kind of making us hate each other. Like they would call my, like for me, they would like say to my brothers, like Summer's, oh, Summer does everything. Summer's a drama queen. Summer needs everything. Summer makes us spend so much money. Meanwhile, my parents were like spending all this money, and then they would like blame the financial problems on me, a child. And then with my brothers, they would tell me they're like lazy, they don't do anything. And like now, because like I've obviously matured and grown up, like I know that that's not true. I know that like my brothers weren't lazy, they were depressed from like their reaction to the trauma was to be depressed, very like inside, sulky, that type. And mine was like type A, gotta be perfectionist. So it's like my parents taught us to hate each other for our survival mechanisms. And I have like a hard time rationalizing that that wasn't purposeful, so that their neglect and abuse wouldn't get out, if that makes sense. I have reconnected with my brothers. I have 2 brothers that I grew up living with. My dad also has other children that he has failed, aside from the family he grew up being the father and raising. I have one sister. I always tell her she should pop in and say her story, but my father had like 2 children from when he was like 16 to like 18 or something, and then had the family with my mom later in life. And like I've reconnected with my sister a lot in the last few years, and we've gotten really, really, really close. Because growing up, she had kind of always thought I was the daughter that my father had shown up for because he abandoned her. I don't want to like tell her story too much, but that's like all I'll get into with that. So like she thought from her perspective that I was like the daughter he showed up for, because that's what he made it look like on social media. But then for me, I'm like, LOL. Ever since I've like kind of like spoken at my story, she's like, oh wow, I feel so bad. Like if I would have known, I would have been in there to get you. Like we've been able to reconnect in that way, which has been great. And then I have an older brother. I have 2 older brothers, but like growing up, I called them my older brother and my younger brother, just because that's how I distinguish the 2. But my older brother and me are still really close. Hope my parents aren't in here. Because like that's like something like that's complicated, is like their level of contact with my parents is different than mine. So like I will probably be no contact till the day I die, unless for some reason my parents have a whole mentality 180 and be like, we're so sorry for neglecting you. Because like I just will never accept a relationship with them again without that. So, and honestly, I'm really proud of myself. That was a hard boundary for me to get to for a while, but my brothers are probably different in that sense. My one brother, unfortunately, I grew up also very parentified to him. I was like his mom growing up. I don't want to cry over this, but he definitely blames me for leaving for college and leaving him behind, which I know is not my fault. But he probably still to this day, like I don't want to put words in his mouth, like he believes that's my fault. And he's very much, I think, brainwashed by my parents, because he never got to escape that environment, so it's all he knows. And even though I see it with that lens, it obviously still sucks. But from my perspective, that brother hates me, which sucks, because I kind of did everything I could for him growing up. But that's unfortunately just also the reality of situations like this, unfortunately. First, something negative is a top response. Your second thought is who you are. That's such a good way to think about it. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much for the hugs. But yeah, like that's definitely one of my biggest things, I mean, I guess honestly I would say those are my like two biggest pillars that I'm still healing from, is the animal hoarding and abuse, because that's just like forever, and unfortunately that's like something I believe my parents are still doing. So it's kind of like hard because my parents have been doing that for as long as, my dog is laying on the tripod. My parents have been doing that for as long as I can remember, like literally as long as I can like think and breathe. My parents have been hoarding and selling dogs in a not good way. And I spoke up last year. So like after I confronted my parents, I confronted them. They did well, we did everything we could for you. And they even said, so I just talked about the whole brother thing. They even said, we neglected your brothers for you, blaming me for their neglect of my brothers, which is a very typical, like I talked about the sibling alienation. It's typical kind of catalyst circle there. It's like they blame me for that. So they don't, like anything they get blamed for, they find someone else in the family to pin it on. And they would even do that like with their own kids. So like, they blame me for all the financial issues. And then what's funny is before I spoke up, I don't know if anyone else relates to this. I don't know where people are in their trauma journey, but I actually, growing up, like I've talked about sibling alienation, like I was probably the favorite child and the golden child, if we talk about those kind of like stereotypes or like archetypes or whatever they're called for like families. I was the golden child. However, like, cause I straight A's, and it's like growing up with like a narcissist, like I was the favorite because I made him look the best to the general public. My accomplishments made him look amazing. So like he loved that. So since I was the favorite, it was always like interesting. Well, I mean, it was interesting to me to kind of see, once I spoke up, like my father kind of treated me how he treated anyone and everyone who's ever spoken up about him. He immediately like flips the table and like flips the narrative, which typical narcissist playbook. But once I started speaking up about the animal stuff, because I was like, okay, if we're not going to take accountability for neglecting me or anything, like the animals are doomed. Like, and I've always said, like, the animals have no voice. Like, I do now. So like, even though like this causes me like trauma, pain, whatever, like I am probably going to keep screaming until the end of the ether, until my parents aren't hoarding dogs anymore, because they don't have voices. Like they can't grow up and have a voice like I do, you know? They're stuck there. They're stuck dealing with this. Like, yeah. So I started posting about that in my hometown chats on Facebook, like really trying to make sure that because people were still a year ago, like actively purchasing puppies from him and not knowing like the extent of what they were getting themselves into. And I was like, oof, like that's kind of crazy. And like, it is like crazy that after, like, I'm almost 30 now, my father was doing that for as young as I can remember. So let's say he was doing it from when I was like 5 or 6, like 25 years. And like, yeah, people, like, he's definitely had issues that I remember growing up and him getting in trouble for, but like, I'm still confused to this day, like how he still is able to like get away with everything that he gets away with. That's like another thing besides the point. Like now one of my personal like goals is to really like advocate for like change for like animal advocacy, and just making sure there's rules and regulations that protect animals, and that those regulations are actually being enforced when they need to be enforced. Unfortunately, for some reason, even though it's like a little town in East Jabumble F nowhere, my father ran after I like moved out and was in college. He was bored, had nothing to do with his life, and he like ran for like a committee member in my hometown, like to be on like the town committee. And those people have been defending him ever since I spoke out, and ever since also ADHD got sidetracked. So like ever since I spoke out, my father even to this day, he still like shares every post of me on Facebook to be like, my beautiful daughter graduating college whatever years ago, my beautiful daughter with this award, my beautiful straight A daughter with this and this and this and this. He shares all of that stuff as if I didn't out him a year ago for, you know, oh, these like atrocious treatment of animals and children, allegedly. So like, that's kind of wild and insane that he would be like, yeah, this is fine, this is cute. And like, so I outed him, and as soon as I outed him, he still shares the post because he's delusional, but like, leading up to that, it's like, my amazing daughter, my smart daughter, straight A, like whatever. And I started posting, and the narrative flipped to, oh, you guys hearing all this noise, like that's my estranged daughter who we this was one of the funniest things ever a year ago that he said, was he financially cut me off, and not like what I was doing last year, advocating against like his animal hoarding ring, was me being mad that he financially cut me off. Let me put this out there for anyone. My father has never financially funded anything in my life, except for maybe like horses growing up, but that was like a weird narcissist, like, hey, go be my puppet and make me look good. So like, the fact that he said that, like he said that to try and make, like, because he's like, oh, other parents will totally relate to this. I cut off my daughter from money and now she's pissed enough to out me for abuse. Like, even if that were true, no kid would be well, I mean, maybe, I guess, but like, in reality, that's not what's happening. Like, people aren't reacting to their parents financially cutting them off and being like, oh my god, they abused. Like, no. And he never was paying for anything ever in my life, and up until that point was like begging me for money. My parents had actually allegedly committed credit card fraud, because me and my siblings, I feel like this is typical in these neglect scenarios, parents had horrible credit, horrible finances, and the second we all turned 18, they started allegedly using our credit. My credit, like, I only just fixed my credit recently because of things my parents did with it, and I'm 30, so that's great. So that's funny that they would now they tried to turn the narrative to be like, oh, she got financially cut off, and that's why, when they've never, like, look at me being cute back there, like, that's me, paid for all those pictures myself, paid for my whole entire college, like, degree. I have 3 college degrees, paid for all of them myself. My parents didn't pay a single dime. My parents haven't paid a single dime towards my life since I was living there in high school, and you guys saw the conditions those were. So don't really think they can say they were financially funding anything ever. So yeah, so that was one of their things. And then he said I like drink and drive, which has never ever happened in my life. He just was like, and then what's funny is at the same time he was trying to say the things that I still to this day say are slander or defamation or harassing him, when that's very much not the truth. Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions? I'm just dumping away. You're welcome. Is everybody doing okay? Does anyone need any tips for going no contact? My dog's barking at me. How is everybody? I hope you're doing well. If you have any CPTSD or childhood trauma related questions related to hoarding, trauma, recovery, healing questions, anything like that, feel free to let me know. Happy to answer. I'm very vulnerable. Did anybody do anything fun today? I just went to work. Nothing crazy. If anyone has any fun stuff to share, we can also talk about fun things. Or if anyone has any good TV shows to recommend. I am out of good TV shows to watch. How is everyone? Is everyone doing good? Ah! Come here! Does anybody want to see my dog? He's sleeping. This is Inky. I can get my drink. Please hold. Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Does anyone have any questions related to any of my videos or any trauma related questions? Or if anyone has questions related to OCD? Hi, how are you? Come on, you can come up. Come here. Do you have to go outside? Do you guys want to walk my dog with me? We can go walk my dog together. Do you have to go walkies? Who wants to go walkies? Do you have to go walkies, or are you just trying to annoy me because you want attention? I can't tell. Hi guys, how are you? Thanks everyone who's been in the live. I'm really grateful for everyone who is popping up in lives or interacting with any of my videos. It means a lot to me. And I'm sure any other survivors that come across it and see. How is everyone? I always get like hyper anxious that my dad's in here. That would be funny though. Everyone would get to see my dad try and pop off on me. The showdown of the century. What? You gotta go outside or something? Alrighty guys. Do you gotta go outside, yes or no? My dog doesn't know she wants to go outside, so I might go walk her and then I might pop back up on live, okay guys? Does anyone need anything or have any questions before I go? Alrighty guys, I hope you have a great night. Happy Tuesday. And I am going to try and do daily lives. So I'll hopefully see you guys tomorrow night. Have a good night guys.